want to say hi to everyone and welcome to the WPS sponsored event entitled Why the New DP4 is Essential for Your Assessment Toolkit. My name is Stephanie Roberts, and I am an assessment consultant for WPS, and I have been a school psychologist for 22 years. I'm happy to talk with you today about the Developmental Profile fourth edition. There are so many exciting features added to this revision that it has become an essential tool for your assessment toolkit. If you work with the birth to 5 population who are just developing skills measured by the DP4, or you're working with the elementary school population who are delayed, or with middle school age or older individuals through age 21 who have more significant delays or cognitive impairments, this tool is a must-have to help you assess these individuals and provide interventions. I'm hoping that this will be a 15-minute interactive session where I will monitor your questions and answer them live. Please keep the questions coming, and I will answer them as we go along. If I miss your question, feel free to post it again, or you can send it via email to consult@wpspublish.com following this session. If you would like additional follow-up, you can also send an email to that address, consult@wpspublish.com. I'd also love to hear how you used previous editions of this assessment or how you plan to use the DP4. Well, let's get started. So, today's agenda, I'm going to go over some updates, the uses for the DP4, key features of the DP4, components, talk about the scales, and administration and scoring. So I'm proud to say that I have been working with WPS for over 5 years. And I'm proud to say that the WPS Research and Development Department took the time to reach out to practitioners who used the DP3, gather their suggestions for improvements, and have discussions with those individuals. Also, they gathered input from the WPS assessment consultants in their experience, both as professional practitioners and also as representatives of customers that we have with WPS. And of course, the authors had significant input into the revision. So there were new elements added, and I'm very happy about that. I am monitoring the chat box, and I do see some comments from some folks. It is a birth to 21 year, 11-month assessment, but I'll get into that a little bit more. And hello, Chris Van Houten from New York. It's great that you're on the call. Okay, so if we look at what's new in the assessment, we retain the core elements of the DP3, but we also have an updated nationally representative sample. It includes clinical cases and Spanish language forms. And as I said, it has a broader age range. The previous edition has only gone up to 12 years, 11 months. This one will go birth to 21 years, 11 months. There are 2 new forms, and those are the teacher checklist and the clinician rating. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about those in just a minute. And there are updated items, obviously reflecting changes in society and technology. There are also items that are gender neutral, culturally sensitive, inclusive of children who are deaf or hard of hearing, which is very important that the items are reflecting those qualities. Also, there is improved precision of measurement at the upper and lower bounds of the age range. The growth score there are growth scores on all forms, and we have an additional rater comparison scoring sheet if you're hand scoring, but we also have a rater comparison report if you are utilizing the DP4 on the WPS online evaluation system. Someone asked if we would share the webinar link afterward. Yes, we will do that. Okay. So the uses of the DP4 It's obviously a valuable instrument for any setting that you're working in, where you need an efficient measure of functional development. We also, if it's also useful if you want to compare how the individual is functioning relative to their peers, measure progress by comparing growth scores from repeated administration. This is really important for those who are working with individuals where they want to know if the interventions put in place are effective. And this is important when we had, especially if you look at some of the older ranges, such as middle school, high school, and you have individuals that are more difficult to test directly, and you want to use some sort of measurement, you can utilize this assessment and utilize the intervention tips, and then come back maybe, let's say, at progress time quarterly, and you can utilize the DP4 to look at their progress from a quarterly perspective. So that's really important. If you are working in schools, for example, with IEP development, or if you're working in private practice and want to see if the child or older individual is making progress on some of these developmental skills. And you also want to use those results to identify skill deficits and obviously the interventions, as I discussed. Some people, practitioners use it, or clinicians use it to determine eligibility for special education and or related services. Also to plan IEPs or IFSPs based on their strengths and deficits, and use as a component in a periodic developmental program conducted by health practitioners when it's necessary between typically developing and delayed children. All right. So I'm looking to see if anybody has questions. And I see that Ashley has answered some of those questions, which is great. The publishing date of the DP4 is September 21st. So I just want to make sure that you know that. Some of the key features, and also I would encourage you to put in the chat, in the comments, how you plan on using the DP4. If you are using the DP4, if you haven't used the DP3, if you are going to use the DP4, how you're planning on doing that, etc. All right. So the key features. We have, there are multiple administration methods across multiple settings. So there's the parent, caregiver, teacher, and clinician. 4 forms with separate norms. You have a parent interview and also a parent checklist. And this interview, obviously you don't send a link, but you do send a link for the checklist. Now, the forms include standard scores and growth scores. And also, with the exception, the clinician checklist has growth scores only, not standard scores. And the obviously, I talked before about how it helps to plan interventions with item by item suggested intervention activities. It also helps you decide if you need to do further assessment and determine eligibility for special education, and progress monitoring using growth scores and rater comparison among ratings, which is important because you want to see how the parent rates the child in the home setting and how the teacher is rating the child, and also how the clinician is going to rate the child. I like the clinician checklist because if you are coming up upon times where you need to see if the child's made progress, you can, as the clinician, utilize that as a progress monitoring tool, which is very important. I see a lot of people are talking about how they use it in preschool assessment, and that's wonderful. I love that. The purpose of the clinician form, like I said, is definitely for you to get your own professional look at the child and how they function, and then you can get a growth score. And then the next time, maybe let's say it's quarterly progress reports, etc. And you're trying to get an idea of the progress of the child or older individual. It's a way for you to be able to take a look at it as a professional. We have another tool that we have has the clinician portion as well, but it's done a little bit differently, and that's with the childhood autism rating scale. But that's a different assessment. I'm just saying, somebody asked about the purpose of the clinician form, and I wanted to make sure I said that. Someone also asked about the software, and if there was going to be desktop software available. And there is not going to be desktop software available for the DP4. There is not desktop software available. However, the WPS online evaluation system is such that it is going to fulfill the same need. So if you have individuals where you want to use paper forms, you can download a PDF from our online system, do that with the person, and then you enter the scores just like you would the desktop software. So that won't be a problem. The online version does include recommendations. It includes the intervention tips, and it's really helpful for when you're working with teachers or parents. Parents all the time, they are all the time asking, what do I do to help my child, or etc. And you can print off those intervention tips based on the parents' ratings, which is nice. Rachel said, hoping with the expanded age range that parents won't feel as bad with their ratings as they have in the past. Yes, I'm hoping that as well. So Brian said, and I love this comment because I feel the same way, he liked using the DP3 for students who cannot be given a cognitive assessment. So it's very hard sometimes with some of our children with delays. They can't handle that cognitive assessment. So there is the cognitive portion, a scale, but I'm going to go over that in a minute. And although the internet's not always available, Susan, with our PDFs, you can download a paper copy of the PDF, utilize it with the parent, and then when you have internet access, you can score it. Liz is saying that they use for preschool assessments and elementary students where traditional assessments may not yield the best results. Great point. And yeah, all right. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on with the presentation, and I'll get back to some questions in a minute. So the other DP4 components are the parent caregiver forms, and the clinician forms have 190 items. I've already told you the age range for those goes birth to 21 years, 11 months. Of course, the teacher checklist has 180 items, and the age range begins at 2 and goes through 21 years, 11 months. And the items are the same across forms with some minor wording changes, the child versus your child, and adjustments to fit the settings. And by the way, you know, if you are evaluating an older individual and you don't consider them, you know, a child, obviously, the parent is going to be able to relate to them because it's their child. But you can always use the person's name, the individual's name, and that's fine. The scales that we have available with the DP4 are the physical, adaptive behavior, social emotional, cognitive, and communication. And this assessment quickly helps you identify developmental strengths and weaknesses in those 5 areas. So for administration and scoring purposes, we have online or paper. The online allows emails links to be sent to the rater with the exception of the parent caregiver interview. That one has to either be done right there with the computer or with paper, and then you bring it back. It's because it's supposed to be an interview, so you're not sending a link to someone for them to fill it out. We have printable response sheets available. Like I said, if you do have someone who does not have a computer, that's totally accessible. And the previous software users can use the OES, the online evaluation system, in the same way by using the free download response sheets and then scoring online, as I said before. All right. So the time, people always ask this because we have limited time. The parent caregiver interview can take anywhere between 20 and 40 minutes, depending on the start and stop rules, etc. The clinician rating, the teacher checklist, and the parent caregiver checklist are all 15 to 20 minutes to complete. As far as the online administration, scoring, we offer a score report, a rater report, a rater comparison report, a progress monitoring report, and an intervention tips. Now, I would encourage you, if you don't know much about the WPS online evaluation system, we do have videos that you can take a look at on our YouTube channel. I would encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. There is one about the facts and myths about our online evaluation system that I happen to do. You can take a look at that, or you can take a look at some of our short videos explaining how our online system works. But I think that will be helpful if you've had no experience with WPS online evaluation system. I'm going to just real quick take a glance at some of the questions we've had. Oh, Jennifer said she started her own practice and is very interested in purchasing the DP4. And I see that Ashley has let everyone know that it is a level B assessment and has put the guidelines, a link to the guidelines there. And can it be scored with the manual? Yes, it can be scored with the manual, and we do not require you to buy our online system, our online product. So you can still get paper. Yes, I just went over the reports. All right. Somebody, Soren says that it's good to use the DP developmental profile for students who are legally blind. All right. All right. So if I get back, we're coming down the home stretch here. The scales, people do ask this question. The scales can be administered individually. So if you only want to do the cognitive portion, you can do that. You are still going to use a protocol for that, but also the general development score is a comprehensive measure of development across all 5 scales and is available when all 5 scales are administered, obviously. Also, standard scores are available for all 5 scales for the parent caregiver interview, the checklist, and then the teacher checklist. Other scoring options include percentile ranks, descriptive ranges, age equivalents, and stay nines. And then, of course, I talked about the new growth scores that are available in all 4 forms. You can do comparison across scales. It's when you have the same administration, and time, which is progress monitoring, and respondents, which is rater comparisons. So that's a really nice feature. These are the descriptive ranges, and they're self-explanatory. You can take a look, but the average range is 85 to 115. As far as intervention is concerned, we have item level analysis that serves as the basis for the intervention to help the individual master developmental milestones. And the WPS online evaluation system automatically, with the click of a button, generates a report with suggested intervention activities based on the results of each rating. As I said, if you want to do an intervention report based on what the teacher is saying so that they can work on things in the classroom, you can do that. Also, if you want to do something for the home setting. We all know that we've given rating scales and they look a bit different in the different settings because different things are required. So hopefully they match. It's good if they do. That way you're all working on the same things together. But if they don't, you have the capability of doing an intervention report for the home setting and an intervention report for the other setting that they're in. So then we have progress monitoring. The DP4 can be re-administered after intervention's been in place or time has passed. We do not stipulate how much time has to pass before you re-administer that. So that's not guidance that we give in the DP4 manual. I know that there are a lot of people in school-based practice where they kind of use a rule of thumb of 4 to 6 weeks, but that's not stated in the DP4 manual. Use of growth scores will help determine if progress has been made. And if an individual has turned a year older, it's important to use their older age to determine if significant growth has been made when you're looking at growth scores. If there's a significant change in gross scores, it's important to determine the practical differences of the difference of those scores by reviewing the items on both administrations to compare changes in responses. All right, so I do want to tell you that to not forget to subscribe to the WPS YouTube channel, where you'll find helpful videos on assessments and other related topics. And you can also go to www.wpspublish.com and sign up for our mailing list to get updates on assessments, discounts, and industry trends. What I have here for you right now is a slide of WPS Resources. We have a telepractice page, we have a content hub, video resources, and then I also put the link there for the DP4 page. As you know, we have many assessment consultants. There are 5 of us here. I have put the contact information if you don't know which assessment consultant is the assessment consultant for your area. We have Ann Rogers, Ashley Arnold, Dougleen Jackson, Laura Stevenson, and me, Stephanie Roberts. If you want to get in touch with any of us and you have questions about the DP4 or any other assessments that we have, please send an email to consult@wpspublish.com. I'm just going to take a very quick look to see. I see Kyla Hill said, I'm not familiar with the DP3. Are there specific school-related tasks, skills evaluated with this test, like using scissors, writing, access to and use of technology, handwriting, glue use, opening containers, etc.? Well, Ashley answered, items on the DP4 include school-related tasks and home-related tasks. It does address use of technology. Will I be able to see those slides when this is over? Yes, we will post the video, which will contain the slides in it. Again, if you have more assessment-related questions, please send an email, as Ashley put in the comments, to consult@wpspublish.com. You can get the slides that way as well. So I am happy to have had all of you today, and it's been a pleasure, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care.